C59J. Let's go. Put that old school. Yeah. I was raised in the hood, got caught up in the mix. Threw my life away over gangs and politics. My mom was never there, she was doing extra shifts. So I ran to the streets, necking 40s with my clique. Hey yo, what's good with everybody, man? I hope everybody's having a productive day, feeling blessed. And like I always say, it's one life, one chance. We only got one chance to do this right, let's get it done. So trip out on this topic. Somebody asked me this question in my DMs on Instagram. So that'll be the best bet, man. The bigger I got, and it's hard to really answer everybody in the comment section, and I apologize for that in advance. You know, I try to keep up with it, but it's very difficult. And so I use mostly everybody on Instagram is what ask me questions, and they provide the content that I have for you guys. He said this. He said, "What if the NF was to go back to its origins as the organization who looked out for his people? Do you think things would be different?" And then he followed up and he said, well, my new viewpoints and the way I've been thinking now, what would I do if I was still in those positions of power to change things to make the cause and the organization better? That one's a difficult one. If I don't answer it at the end of the video, I'll answer it in another video. I got to really take time to think, right? But I have an opinion on that. So look, you guys remember that movie American Me? How the Mexican Mafia started? And it was a great description. You know, they made it a point, Mexican Mafia, to say that they wanted to take over prison because they didn't want to get bullied and butchered and beat up and extorted, harassed, raped, and murdered by the white and black population who seems back then were more predominantly ran. That's what the prisons were predominantly ran by, the blacks and the whites. They were the bigger factions during the whole, you know, racial segregation, race riots, race wars that were going on. And the Mexicans were just stuck in the middle getting preyed upon, right? That's the same ideology and propaganda that's told to norteños, that the NF branched off because the Mexican Mafia were raping anybody from up north. They always emphasize through norteño history that the Mexicans from up north were being raped, extorted, robbed, beat up, sold for prostitution, stuff like that. So they painted a bad picture on the Mexican Mafia. But then again, the Mexican Mafia painted its own picture like that. We all know the historical sense and the historical things that took place. That's what the Mexican Mafia did. They had girlfriends. They wanted to take over the black market. The drug trade has always been the biggest thing when it comes to prison. And that's what the Mexican Mafias went after in the beginning, was to control the drug trade, since a lot of them were from LA, close to the border, in San Diego. So they made a lot of money becoming a powerful mafia organization. And I said it in one of my previous videos. The only reason the NF members, the original ones, you know, from Chino Sinners and all the other Nuestra Familia members that were from down south, the only reason they branched off is because I don't think they were in a position or could gain political position to gain that kind of power and control over these neighborhoods and have the same power and money that a lot of these original Mexican Mafia members had. The Mexican Mafia has always been the type to not share their power and share their money. You know, there's supposed to be a mutual thing with all the brothers, that they're supposed to be sharing all this wealth. But as you can see with all the stories that I've told and everybody else, they're greedy individuals. They pride themselves on having the most territory, making the most money, extorting the most people, because money does make you that much more powerful. And that's their ego trip. So the NF, the ones that branched off and created their own organization, I think was because they wanted to create their own sense of power and have the same thing these dudes did. They just weren't able to do it within the organization. Which is a justifiable branch off, because that's what you do. That's what you're seeking. Money, power, and respect, right? So the NF's origins is really based on money and power. And if you read the Constitution with the NF, a lot of it talks about that. It tells you a lot about their positions. You know what a lieutenant is, what a capitan is, what a soldado is. You get the necessary protocols as to what each position entails. Nuestra General to the captains, lieutenants, regiment commanders. But the NF Constitution has its own specific category when it comes to the NF Bank. And it describes how the NF Bank is to be designed, is to be held, who's to run it, so on and so forth. So in the NF Constitution, one of their primary focuses and goals was to establish an NF Bank for themselves.
And this being that they're identified as a prison organization and they identify themselves as the mob, the O, they're into organized crime. So they had every intention, as the Mexican mafia did from the beginning of time, which is take over the drug trade or establish footing in the drug trade, establish these prison yards where they weren't housed with Mexican mafia members or Southerners. In the future, they have their own prisons where they can control the drug population if they were housed with other inmate population like the blacks or the whites. They always been about money. That was the whole purpose of their organizations to establish. Now, them managing to establish Northern California gave themselves their own region to take over. So they're always been about money. And in the NF Constitution, and they wind up incorporating this same concept and philosophy in the Norteño struggle, is a terminology you're going to see frequently. It's called becoming a self-sufficient society. A self-sufficient society, in accordance to the NF, not NSOS, I'll break that down in a little bit, is they're a prison organization that's involved in organized crime with lifetime members who made a lifetime commitment to the organization. So why do you think Brown Bob got killed? Because he didn't go out there and report to the NF, made no money for the NF, went rogue, did his own thing and failed to report, and that was seen as the utmost betrayal. He was considered a deserter. A cowardice and desertion is grounds for automatic death sentence. So they killed him because he was doing nothing for them. As they've done in the past to any NF member or any NF associate that has done nothing for them or hasn't kicked down no money, they murdered him. If you go through history and read a lot about the NF and a lot of the crimes they committed in the 70s and 80s when they first got out of the penal systems, when they had dates and not all of them were lifers, everything they talk about in those case laws and those court papers and those transcripts tells you that they were killing people because it was drug dealers not paying up, prostitutes not paying up, NF dropouts, NFs that failed to report, NFs that walked away from the organization, NFs that got too greedy, NF members that took over territories and just became rogue NF members. It's all the same story and the same scenario. All has to do with money and drugs. That's what that organization looks like. But that's what that organization wants for itself, is that we're going to become an organized crime family. We're going to go out there and make money illegitimately by taxing the streets, by extorting everybody we can, taking over businesses, robbing people, burglaries, you name it, because that's how they're going to take care of each other. So before the Norteño struggle and their responsibility and them becoming responsible for Norteños and Northerners, they were just too busy committing organized crime. That's all they're ever going to be, and that's what they were since the beginning of time. Now, you incorporate that same leadership and philosophy and ideas into another branch, another movement. That's what they wanted for Norteños, only in a sense that they don't have to do it now. Norteños can do it for them. So while they sit back, relax, and collect all this money, all this kick-up money, Norteños are the ones making all the necessary sacrifices, because a lot of these guys already made the sacrifice for the organization, and they're isolated in prison cells in Corcoran shoes and Pelican Bay shoes, where they couldn't obtain that self-sufficient society no more. So in creating the Norteño movement, they looked at it like, well, it's a recruiting process. Not only do we have a cesspool of Norteños and criminals and convicts that we can pick and choose from who can join this organization that could benefit this organization financially, we also have these dudes that do our bidding and do our legwork and do our footwork because we can't do it no more. So the NF, a lot of them that made it back to the penal system and got life sentences shot themselves in the foot because now they can't go out there and make money for the organized crime that they're a part of. So they have Norteños to do it for them. See, they were trying to teach Norteños in the beginning to become a self-sufficient society like them, only the money that the Norteños made, 30% of it had to go to the NF. But like I said in one of my other videos, in the 80s and 90s, when the NR, Nuestra Raza, created their own street regiments, it was on the basis because all the NFs that were in control of the street regiments at the time, all that money, if you were a Norteño, all that money that was being made on the streets was going to them. These Norteños didn't see a dollar out of it. They were just doing all the footwork and catching all the cases and catching all the bodies and having to do all the errands and running around. They were pretty much just errand boys for the NF. So what do? They created their own street regiments after working for NF regiments identical to one another and started creating their own self-sufficient society. But see, in the penal system, a self-sufficient society is norteños creating a household establishment, creating a household bank. So you don't have to ask your mom, because that's, believe it or not, I hate to be the one to break it to you, there's a lot of norteños that put in work for their hoods, caught bodies, kill people, gunned at enemies, robbed, stole, tweaked, sold drugs, end up in the penal system. They don't have their own money on their books. It's very rare you see any homeboy that says, yeah, I have a bank account with like 40, 50,000 of my own personal money. No, they're asking their moms for money. They're asking their aunts for money. They're asking their primas for money. They're asking their girls for money. They're asking their wives for money. And there's a lot of wives or, loved ones that are there for their families in jail, no matter the circumstances, no matter what they did, even if they burn bridges, that look out for northerners. Every northerner that I've ever seen in jail has a wife or a girlfriend that's taking care of them. They don't have their own money. So you got a lot of norteños that were functioning with the street regiments or putting in work for their neighborhoods, but their neighborhoods are not coming together like, hey, bro, take a hat off. Everybody put in like $10, $5. And we'll turn this $5 into a Western Union, a money order, a JPay, Green Dot, whatever, and give it to the homie once a month. He smacks somebody for our hood. Doesn't work like that. It's very rare you hear those kind of stories in jail. It's very rare that you'll see a norteño be like, nah, my neighborhood takes care of me, bro. I don't got to ask my baby mama for nothing. I ain't got to ask my mom for nothing. Norteños are getting taken care of by their family. But a lot of norteños that got wrapped up in these indictments, in these street regiment indictments, in these cases, were all doing it for the furtherance of NF will. So obviously, like I said, the NF only wanted to utilize the norteños to benefit their organization because they got slammed down. They got hit with some hardships. They had to deal with a lot of intricacies in their organization, from internal fighting and law enforcement cracking down on them, snatching them up off the streets. So how are they going to all make money if they're all sitting in jail doing nothing? Prison tier money, selling drawings, selling pruno, selling white lightning. They needed to establish the drug trade and take over the drug trade. And in doing so, they utilized norteños and norteños' relatives like primas, cousins, nieces, whatever the case may be. Most of the time, it's just runners. Imagine that, being norteños going around getting girls all drugged out and asking them, hey, just go deliver it to the homie. I got you on the sack. The NF don't care what that girl's circumstances is or that person's circumstances is, as long as that person can deliver that dope into that facility so they can make money. Even if they get caught up later for it, oh well, find another one. Everybody's replaceable in this gang life. People just don't want to admit it because they think that the term active makes them invincible. The term active and being solid makes them untouchable. And the term active and being loyal to a cause or loyal to a prison organization means that they have some type of favor. They have some type of blessing. They have some type of compensation for everything that they do. There's not that, I personally can't say it, but there ain't no norteño that can raise his hand and say, man, I've been compensated by the NF before. I ain't never heard a story about it. Have you guys? No, because it doesn't work like that. Ain't no NF member that has a bank of its own, whether he's a lieutenant, captain, Nuestra General, inner circle, inner council. They have an NF bank specifically for them. They're not going to go out their way and say, hey, man, the homie caught like 6 bodies off this NF list and this bad news list or this BNL list. He caught some bodies for us, bro. Let's at least get him a lawyer, see if we can get him a better deal. It's not going to work like that. Oh, this norteño, he got busted for this. We need him out on the streets. Put up some bail money for him. Let's get him out. It's not going to work like that. These norteños in county jail can't reach out to NF members on the streets and be like, hey, man, can we borrow some street regiment money, bro? The homies are doing bad in here. We can use this. We can use that. We can buy cell phones. You guys got to figure it out. This NF money is NF money only. So all the money that you see on these street regiments by norteños, it's all going to the NF. That's NF territory. That's NF property. That's NF money. These norteños might make a little money out of it, but what's all that little money really worth when you're facing 10, 20 years on an indictment? It's really not worth nothing. You might think it is because you get to walk around every day saying that you're active and you're solid and you're loyal and there ain't no smut on your name and you ain't on no list. If that's really worth it to you, then so be it, man. Go ahead and throw your life away for a couple of dollars, a couple of sacks. 10, 20 years is a long time to waste your life and give it and devote it to somebody else that at the end of the day, somebody else is going to replace you in your position. And that NF member is going to forget about what you've done because he's going to be too busy trying to interact with this person and have this person do his bidding and his NF will for him at the end of the day. So that's what a self-sufficient society is. They want establishments to have their own banks, their own money, so we don't have to rely on our families and our loved ones. There's money to be made in the penal system, but the only way you can make long money, really, to be honest with you, is the drug trade. So norteños need to find runners on the main lines. Northerners need to find runners on the main lines. And these norteños and northerners that find these runners that can bring it in, obviously now that the NF's out there, you're not giving up that 1/3 no more. You're giving up what you're told to give up. So everything that you try to do to become a self-sufficient society when it comes to norteños and northerners, you can't be a society no more because the NF's out there. The NF wants all that for themselves. It's going to go in their vein. It's going to go to their wives. It's going to go in the NF bank. It's going to go in the NF books. So you're going to see a lot more norteños not wanting to be part of the drug game in prison and rather ask their families and their loved ones and their moms and their dads and their sisters for money for what? So you can make $10,000 off dope in 2 months and 98% of it goes to an NF's books? For what? They destroyed themselves by preying on norteños and northerners way too much. I think where the NF went wrong the most is because when the Mexican Mafia started taxing all the southern neighborhoods and sureños that represented the 13, started taxing them for money to represent that identity, for, adopting the 13 and being part of a sureño barrio, the NF followed through with that same concept and made norteños, they were supposed to be different. They made norteños feel like you're just like the Mexican Mafia. The same thing that we're up against, that we go against, that we disbelieve in, who you taught were our oppressors, those who oppose us, you became just like them. And it destroyed a lot of norteños' egos and a lot of northerners that would rather just walk away or just live the normal life or do the bare minimum, which is nothing wrong with that, even though it's frowned upon and you're looked at like you're less than, you're below the organization, you're below the cause. There's a lot of northerners that don't get involved. And there's a lot of norteño rappers that if it was back in 2001 when GUN, every time you said norte or wore a red rag in your music video, you were getting taxed, pretty sure a lot of these norteños that you see today, these norteño rappers, wouldn't be conducting themselves in the same fashion. Because back then, every time you said norte, you said catorce, you threw up a 1-4, you were getting taxed by the NF, because the NF were a hell of a lot more present before Black Widow operation took place and all the NFs got snatched up. So these norteño rappers, man, they got it easy. And I'm pretty sure a lot of these norteño rappers, they're not involved in the politics like you think. They may portray themselves to be, they may seem like it, but real street politics, real NF politics that dictate the streets, a lot of those homies that get involved in that don't last too long on the streets and they end up in prison with their big homies on the yard. What the NF could have done different, we don't need a taxation from our neighborhoods. That was the whole purpose, giving these norteños an identity. These NF members already had street establishments. These NF members already had regiment commanders and regiment channels and respective channels for each and every neighborhood. They already had a handful of norteños that were always willing to aid and assist the cause, the street regiments, and the NF by volunteering and being loyal to it and just believing in it. So you didn't have to tax the neighborhoods. You didn't have to tax every norteño. You didn't have to take 1/3 from a norteño when norteños already wanted to contribute on their own behalf anyways and help out. But you discouraged a lot of people and pushed a lot of people away, and a lot of people got deemed no good because you gave too many people a sense of power and a sense of greed by abusing your own authority and becoming greedy to the people that looked up to you as an example. That's what destroyed everything. That's what destroyed the NF in the long term. They became just like the Mexican Mafia, and any smart, active individual can see that for what it is. I don't need to be the one to tell you on YouTube. You can see it for yourself. Now, if they wouldn't have taxed all these neighborhoods and made norteños feel like that's all they worth was a dollar value, pretty sure things would be a hell of a lot different. Pretty sure that BNL wouldn't be that big. But then again, norteños also did it to themselves. There was a decade where norteños just destroyed norteños without the NF's permission, without the NF's guidance and direction, without the NF even knowing. So norteños kill each other all the time. Norteños do it to each other all the time. It's just the way it is. That's what power does to you. And no matter what norteño believes he's righteous in his own mind, once he gets in that leadership position does a lot of things to your mind frame, and your decisions are not always going to be good. Even you can try to convince yourself that each and every decision that you ever made and all your actions were for the greater good, but there's somebody in the upper management, in the inner circle, in the inner council, that's going to believe that it wasn't for the righteous reasons, that you were in the wrong for that. That's why so many Norteño leaderships get blasted and accused of making false allegations or bad calls. There's a lot of Norteños on the SNY that are there and they'll say, hey, man, I got charged for bad calls. Because there's always going to be another man that's going to disagree with you and accuse you that because it wasn't done his way or in accordance to his way of thinking, yours was a bad call. It's that easy to convince the upper management, and it's that easy to send a couple $100 every month to an NF member and then out of nowhere just say, hey, bro, I don't like this dude. I don't like the way this man did this call. I think it was inappropriate, and you start justifying how you would have went about it and how you could have preserved a life, or things could have been different and circumstances could have went a different way that can be considered more righteous than his. All the NF is going to say is, handle your business, bro. Take care of it. That's on you right there. It's as easy as that to get somebody removed and get somebody deemed. It's just a lot of people don't talk about all the people that have been deemed. And when I do, you know, actives are going to run to the comment sections disagreeing with me all the time. But that's the truth of the reality. The truth of the reality is the organization can't go back to looking out for its people because it never did. It never was about that. The propaganda that I can teach you guys and show you guys and expose you to, nothing about them bonds you're going to see when you walk these yards today. At all whatsoever. Nothing about that format is even being applied to what you see on the yards today. Because all the stories we've been hearing about, and this is not just stories coming from me. Just want to point that out. NF is just preying on Norteños and victimizing Norteños left and right. The same way the Mexican Mafia victimized Northern Chicanos back in the day in history, that forced the NF to branch off and create their own organization, they become that same example. And they're just predators, and Norteños are the prey. And the only reason that Norteños still exist today is because that's all they know. That's their identity they've been living by for so long. That's all they know. They don't know how to walk away. Most Norteños are only sticking around today because this is the lifestyle that they join, and they just don't want to run from it. They don't want to be labeled it. They don't want to be abused by it. They don't want to be hurt by it. They don't want it to follow them in the long run and be in positions like myself. So why not? Just be preyed upon all day and every day. As long as you can say you're loyal and you're good and you're solid and you can wake up the next day and not really worry about being called a SNY dropout, then Norteños will just tolerate it for what it is. But it's just sad to say that a Norteño, even a Sureño, can't wake up today and realize and tell themselves in the mirror, like, man, my organization ain't what it's supposed to be. My big homies ain't what I thought they were. So I got to be the one that admit it for you. We all believed it for many years that these guys were heroes. They were guys with leadership examples, and all they are is just power hungry, money hungry, greedy individuals, and they just wind up preying on their people. So there's no way in history that I can recall that it was all for the greater good, or going back to its origins where it was for the people. I've never seen it to be for the people. I've never learned it to be for the people. The propaganda is to teach you it's for the people. But 98% of Norteños don't apply those bonds and those formats for the greater good. It's just destroying it within. That's just my personal opinion. So with that being said, like I always say, is one life, one chance. You only got one chance to do this right. Let's get it done. Peace.